Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Production. I'm Eric, and we have Lucas as always.
Hey everyone.
Today is September 19th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about a very special announcement that came out today. Beto O'Rourke, which you may know from the 2018 Senate race, has announced that he will be running for governor in 2022 for Texas. We're going to be talking about his background, then we're going to be talking about Abbott's background, the races they've both been in, and then we're going to be talking about our final predictions given some other factors.
And with that being said, let's get right into it.
So, as we announced, Beto O'Rourke has announced that he will be running for governor, and this is kind of interesting. And we'll talk about this later within the video, but we're not really sure how well he's going to perform given a lot of the factors. So let's talk about Beto O'Rourke. So he's an American politician. He's mostly been in Texas level politics, or like state politics. He's represented the 16th congressional district, so he's been a representative. And probably though where he peaked in popularity was the 2018 Senate race, where he was running against Ted Cruz, and he came very, very close to winning against Ted Cruz. He campaigned in every county, and he really did his best, to mobilize the vote, but he did not make it, but he came very close. So that's probably what he's most known for. So now he's kind of making a comeback in the 2022 Senate race, and he will be up against Greg Abbott, who is the current incumbent governor that Lucas will talk about right now.
So Greg Abbott is the current governor of Texas. Obviously, he is a pretty conservative governor. It's actually kind of funny because he's actually facing a Trumpier challenge from Allen West, who is a former representative. But I do believe Greg Abbott will win that primary against him. And Greg Abbott has done a lot of interesting things during his term. I'll discuss this later in the video. For example, that controversial abortion law that the Texas recently passed. As a candidate, Greg Abbott is actually a pretty good candidate. He has won elections by pretty large margins. For example, in 2018, he defeated Lupe Valdez by 13 points. And this is a huge margin compared to not only the Senate election, where Beto lost by only 2 points, the House races, where Democrats lost only by 3 points. Lieutenant governor, the Republican, only won by like 5 points. So compared to all the other statewide races, Greg Abbott won by a much larger margin compared to them. Of course, this might be attributed to the fact that the candidate that he was running against was not as good, but nevertheless, it was still a very impressive win. So it does show that Greg Abbott is a pretty good candidate actually on the statewide level, which we will be factoring into our prediction. I'll also discuss Beto O'Rourke here. One of the biggest issues that we believe with Beto O'Rourke is the fact that, he said in the presidential debate, we're going to take your AR-15s, your AK-47s. So for some background, Beto O'Rourke ran for president after losing his 2018 Senate election. He ran a very short campaign that kind of failed to gain traction. And he went on the debate stage, one debate, and said, hell yes, we're going to take our AR-15s. And this could prove to be very problematic for him in a state like Texas, a very deep red state, or rather, I don't want to say deep red, but a previously deep red state that cares a lot about guns, and they believe a lot in their rights to have guns, which might drive up turnout for those who might be opposed to this. We could see higher turnout of non-bachelor degree voters, and a lot of those Republican voters that might not normally turn out in an election like this, they might be mobilized to turn out against Beto O'Rourke because of what he's said about guns. And Greg Abbott could be running ads using this clip and talking about how he wants to take away their guns. So that's why we're going to factor this also into our prediction now. And I'll say right now that in my opinion, if Beto O'Rourke didn't run for president, in 2020, and he just, in 2018 didn't run for anything else and then ran for governor in 2022, I think he would have a much higher chance of winning had that happened. And I'll turn it back to Eric now, to discuss the controversial abortion bill that was recently passed in Texas and its impacts on this election.
Right. So Lucas kind of summed it up there. So recently, Texas, well, specifically Greg Abbott, he, as the executive kind of signed off on this, basically restricted all types of abortion for basically any types of reason. And it spurred a lot of controversy all over the nation, and especially in Texas, because, just kind of, like now women just cannot get an abortion for whatever reason, and it's very controversial. And as you see, it's sparked a lot of protest, and Greg Abbott is under a lot of heat for letting this happen under his rule. So that is something that may really affect him, and that's probably something he's going to be really hammered on, especially by Beto O'Rourke, who is on the complete other side of the spectrum. He's like pro-choice, like 100%, according to this website. So he's probably going to be interrogated basically on this issue when he wins the nomination, like 100% basically. And it's also interesting that I mentioned, Beto O'Rourke's not exactly your most moderate candidate. I wouldn't say he's the most progressive, but like as I said, he is pro-choice, and as Lucas explained, he really he wants to take, well, at the time at least during the 2020 election running process, he said that he wanted to take all of the rifles, which again in Texas is kind of really the wrong way to go given what type of state you're in. So he's really not your most moderate, which is interesting to see if that will really work in a state like Texas.
Yeah, it's an interesting strategy. I was discussing this with Eric before, but he's kind of running like how John Ossoff or Raphael Warnock ran in Georgia. Of course, Georgia is much more blue than Texas is, but it'll be interesting to see if this type of campaign works, because as we discussed before, he's not running like a Phil Bredesen or a Joe Manchin who ran on a pro-life campaign. So it'll be interesting to see what type of campaign actually works in this type of state. Also, we have to discuss, of course, election results recently from Texas in 2020. We, of course, saw Donald Trump perform extraordinarily well with Hispanics for some reason. These counties swung several points. For example, Starr County swung 55 points to the right. Kennedy County, all of these high, I think they are majority Hispanic counties. Yes. In southern Texas, they all just swung way to the right. And of course, we have to note that Hillary Clinton did very well with Hispanics in 2016. So I think one thing we have to keep in mind is the question that we're all asking is this Hispanic swing permanent, or was it a one-time Trump election thing? And, and it was kind of similar to what people are discussing about the suburban trend. Is this because of Trump, or has this been a long-term trend? And in my opinion, I do think it is a long-term trend. We've seen it happening before, but the Hispanic trend is new. It's interesting, and we're going to definitely keep an eye out for it. We'll probably factor this also into our prediction, but we have to also mention that Beto did pretty well with Hispanics in 2018 anyway. So we'll see if anything has changed from that. And that leaves us with our final prediction for the state of Texas, the big state of Texas. Eric, I'll toss it over to you for our final prediction.
Sure. So given everything in mind, given the candidates that are most likely going to run, although I just have to quickly add, Matthew McConaughey, he hasn't officially announced it, but some random polls are showing him doing better than Greg Abbott, which is kind of fascinating, but I don't even know how credible they are. Just some trivia to throw out there that it's a huge possibility that this actor may be running against Greg Abbott. But anyways, back to the final prediction. Assuming that O'Rourke is the nominee for the Democratic Party and Abbott is the nominee for the Republican Party, we still do think that Abbott is going to win the state in quite a hefty margin, because we have to consider everything. O'Rourke by himself, just standing alone, may seem like a good candidate, a very active one, he knows how to speak and mobilize clearly. He's also very driven, right? In the 2018 race, he visited every single county, Democrat, Republican, whatever, but he still went to every county in Texas to campaign. But, given his past rhetoric and kind of his performance, And given that it's a red wave year, and also given that Abbott, other than this abortion law, was generally popular within Texas, within the Texas Republicans, he's probably going to win in the likely, Greg Abbott. That's probably going to be the margin of this race. And obviously, it is still kind of early to tell, but it's probably going to go around the same as, Donald Trump kind of won Texas. There's, as we've seen from different elections in the past, there is the Republican margin is becoming smaller and smaller every single time. But for this, given that it's a red wave year, it's probably going to stay around the 5 to 7 point range, unless something more unpopular happens to Greg Abbott, or the vice versa, that something really may change.
Right, I agree with you. I mean, yeah, I think you meant to say an off-year election than a red wave year, because we don't really know for sure yet. And also, are you sure that Kirsten Sinema won't win this election?
Yes, Lucas, I'm pretty sure. Good joke to throw in. Go check out yesterday's video.
Anyway, with that being said, that's the end of the video for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this episode, please like one. If you like our content, please subscribe. And we'll see you in our next episode tomorrow.
See ya.